Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome to Big Blend Radio's first Friday Toast of the Arts and Parks show. I'm Lisa Smith, the daughter half of the Big Blend team. Together, Nancy and I publish Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, as well as Parks and Travel magazine, and we're full-time travelers on your Love Your Parks tour, where we're on our quest to visit and cover all parks, public lands, and their communities in America and beyond, because why stop there, right? So you can keep up with everything we do at BigBlendMagazines.com. Today we're very excited to have composer, musician, trumpeter, and educator Andy Jarema join us. He's going to talk about his music, his amazing creativity, and his experience as the latest National Parks Arts Foundation artist in residence in the Hawaii-Volcanoes-National-Park. It's interesting, he is based out of Detroit, Michigan, but he has also, gone to the Smoky Mountains on an artist residency. So it's going to be interesting to hear about his experience in Hawaii, also because he does a lot of recording out in the field. And I encourage you to go to his website. It's AndyJarema.com, and that's Jarema. I feel like going all reggae on him with that last name of his. It's an awesome last name. So anyway, AndyJarema.com. Also, the National Parks Arts Foundation, we do this show every first Friday. A lot of times, as we are doing with Andy, we're recording the segments because we want to chat with the artists right as they're in that, in the experience, immersed in that national park experience. We're doing that with Andy today. In fact, he's getting ready to take the stage and do his event in Hawaii. But National Parks Arts Foundation is really an amazing nonprofit organization that puts artists within a national park, or at least in that setting, for a full month where they get to create and do an event. This is something that once you're in that program, it sits with you for the rest of your life. It's one of those, pinch me moments. And it's really cool because it's not just artists and painters, it's musicians, poets, writers, performers, dancers, installation artists, filmographers, videographers that can get involved with this. So I encourage you to go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org. As you'll hear from Andy, he's in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park now. Other artists have been to places like Dry Tortugas, Death Valley, Gettysburg. So it's really quite a unique program. But welcome, Andy. How are you?
Doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Oh, doing good. I just keep talking about this National Parks Arts Foundation program. We've been doing it, covering the different artist stories for years. And is it like a pinch me moment when you do this kind of experience?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's hard to describe how special it is to get to be in these parks for a full month. My wife and I, we love to travel to the national parks. We've been doing it for several years now. And, we often get to go on vacation for maybe just a few days into this park, and you get a surface level sense of what the park is. But on these residencies, you get to go deep, and you get to do the hikes that you never thought you get to do because you have so much time, and you get to talk to people, interact with people, see the culture around the park. I mean, it's just a phenomenal experience that, like you said, is a once in a lifetime. It's really phenomenal.
Well, now this is your second lifetime one, right? So the first one you did was the Smoky Mountains National Park. In fact, Nancy and I almost made it there. We were out in Kentucky and going to Tennessee, had to do a little turnaround. As all, travels, take detours all the time. But it's a place we're still avidly working on getting to. But when you were there, because this is interesting, you're a trumpeter, but you're not going out there and blowing your trumpet in the middle of the park, right? You're doing something a little bit different.
Well, I did a little bit of both. I did some recording, but
cool.
I also brought my trumpet along the trail and had some fun out there.
Good.
Yeah, I'll explain my process really quick. So what I did was I brought my recording device. It's a Zoom H4, and it's a really sensitive microphone that can pick up just about any sound in the environment, wherever I am. And so I would just kind of get up in the morning and go on the trail, and any fascinating sound that I heard, I would just record. And then when I would get home at night, I get on my laptop and I plug in those sounds to various computer software programs that I have and just manipulate the sound until it became music. Just playing around and doing what a composer does.
So it's like you're basically creating a new instrument through these sounds.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm starting with, individual notes. I might have a bird sound here or a waterfall sound there, and I just kind of put them in a certain order and say, that sounds like a certain rhythm, and like that's the bird sound first and then the waterfall sound first. And it's interesting you say instrument, because oftentimes, I'm an instrumentalist. Again, you mentioned I play trumpet. A lot of the times the sounds I create, I kind of emulate things that might work on an instrument, but it's just with the nature sounds instead. So, for example, I might, instead of making a beat, like a hip-hop beat out of a snare drum, bass drum, and hi-hat, I might just say, well, a bass drum sound is really just any low sounds. Why not just use a deep, booming, sound of thunder for that bass drum sound? And then that just sort of transforms the music into some sort of new hybrid between the musical world and the natural world.
Well, I think it all comes from the natural world, quite frankly. I mean, I always think about like woodpeckers being like the first voice, right? And for singers, like you listen to the birds. And I always think nature is who we go to for that inspiration. I think instruments were sometimes made out of, oh, this makes a sound, but then maybe tuned up according to nature, like way back when.
Right, and it's funny you mention that, because the talk I'm giving tonight at the Kilauea Visitor Center here in Hawaii is about birds, and it's just uncanny what scientists have uncovered. For example, there's a bird I love called the hermit thrush, and they've actually found that the hermit thrush sings in a similar manner to our musical scales, that their notes correspond to like a major or minor scale. And so scientists are looking into, well, did we get that sound from the birds, like you said? Some scientists think yes. Some also think that maybe there's a common source that both we and the birds are digging from elsewhere in nature. But I think I agree with you that there's some source in nature that I think music might have a strong root in. A lot of cultures, like you said, would make instruments that would emulate nature sounds, whether it be the birds or the wind going through the grass or the water. So there's definitely a connection there.
I think it's interesting what you're doing, because it makes us think. We're avid park people, and when we first started our tour, it was all national park units, and we realized that all piece of land is important, because it also, obviously, the natural environment. There's recreation. It's a place to chill out. Obviously habitat for wildlife, birds, and it's just, an important thing, but also history. But what we found was that a lot of people thought, oh, you're talking about taking these hikes and everything. Some people think, to go to national park, you have to be this avid hiker. And we started this Facebook group, 1 Hour Walk, to let people know that you can walk anywhere pretty much, and a lot of our park units have ADA compliant trails and things like that. And there's accessibility. But it was also about teaching people about slowing down. If you have to walk the same neighborhood every day, you have to be creative and a little bit more observant. You start to see plants and bugs and light in a different way. And I think what you're doing with music is being like the observant musician or recorder and creator of that, because I look at it as a photographer kind of thing, and music too. But there's this thing with what you're doing is creating an observance of sound, if that makes sense.
Yes, because I think what sort of happens is, there's this ubiquitous tapestry of sound that's constantly surrounding us, whether we're in a national park or not. I live in Metro Detroit, about 20 minutes north of the city, and, my soundscape is, I wake up in the morning and take my dog out for a walk, and I hear the highway. I hear this low, humming, rattling sound. And, most days I don't even pay attention to it. But then, my job as a composer is to pay attention to those sounds that otherwise we wouldn't hear. And even the sound of the highway becomes fascinating when, the weather can be different and influence the sound of that freeway. It can get louder, softer, higher pitched, lower pitched. So I think you're correct in saying my music kind of points that out. My music takes these natural sounds and puts them in a musical context and says, here, listen to this sound. It could be musical and fulfilling and enriching to your life if you decide to pay attention to it.
Mm.
And that's sort of the joy I take in making my music. It's just fun for me as a person to have those realizations every day and know the sounds that I don't often pay attention to.
So let's play The Aftermath. I want to know about the title of it, and if you set us up and let everybody know, because this was the Smoky Mountains recordings, right, that you put together, and didn't you record this all in one place?
Yes. So this piece, The Aftermath, was a collaboration with a wonderful artist named Alyssa Coffin. Her and I met down in the Smokies. She is or was an artist in residence at the Aeromont College, which is just in Gatlinburg, Tennessee there. And we hit it off really quick and decided to do a collaboration. And so what happened was I went out to this specific trail. It's called the Andrews Bald Trail. And she told me, listen, take your recording device, record every possible sound you can at that specific location, and then make music out of it. So I got the sound of breaking branches, my footsteps, running water, birds, and she actually also went out there and recorded some sounds on her iPhone, and she sent those to me. And so I made this music out of just that location. So it's a very specific place and time. And then what she did, this is probably the most fascinating part. My music was only a small part. She took my music, and she hiked out there on the Andrews Bald Trail, and she put down a mat or a paper on the ground, and she put ink on her feet, and she actually danced across the paper with her feet to my music. So it's sort of this really interactive thing between my music influencing her dance, which caused this, I think she calls it a dance drawing, just using her ink on her feet to make this beautiful mural. And so when she got done with it, I think, I'm not exactly sure why she called it The Aftermath, but I know that a hiker had recently died actually on that trail. And it had been on both of our minds thinking of the sort of danger and the sort of footprints that are left behind and maybe the people who might never get to travel that trail again. So I think that might have some insight into why she called it The Aftermath. But it was a really phenomenal process, and I was shocked by Alyssa's creativity. She's the one who sort of came up with this whole process, and I think it adds a lot when you hear the music, knowing that process behind it.
Yeah, and in the end, also hearing the people being in the park too. So, and I don't want to I shouldn't have given that away, right? Everybody, take a listen.
No.
Here it is.
Yeah,
here's
sure.
Here's the aftermath. You're listening to Big Blend Radio, and you just heard the aftermath that was created between Jarema, and also Allison
Mm-hmm.
Coffin. And, that was recorded. A lot of the different sound was recorded in Smoky Mountains National Park in one spot. And Andy is with us. And Andy, it's a very interesting, to me, it's a soundscape. It's like a sound painting. It puts you in that place where you were, but that, to me, it's like there's also like string instruments in there, and the breath is freaky in a way. You know what I mean? It's like it reminds us that we're there, that human life is in there, or is it a human breath? You know what I mean? There's like an
Yes.
interesting vibe to that.
Right. And there is the piece is dark. It's very, very
Yeah.
dark, and that was sort of the intention going in, because the Smokies are often this dark place. It's foggy and it's mysterious, and so I kind of came at it with that mindset, and then Alyssa, I think, just sort of added on to that piece. Alyssa Coffin being the artist
Alyssa,
who
I
collaborated
called her
with me on
Allison.
that. Yep.
Sorry about that.
Oh yeah,
But
that's fine. But yeah, there definitely was also an element of her being a dancer. They use their breath a lot. They talk about breath energy. And so I was very conscious of including a lot of breathing sounds. And that was actually her breathing on the trail when she was hiking out there. That was her sound. So I was very conscious to include that sound, because I think that was a part of her dance that went with the piece. And also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, the initial sound that you hear is actually flies.
I was wondering, I was like, is that like a big mosquito or what?
Yeah, they're actually just like these house flies that what I did with the sound was I pitch shifted it. So instead of being in a higher octave or frequency, I pitch shifted the sound so it was this low sort of resonant sound. So those are all flies that I took a recording of out there in the Smokies.
You can make some trippy videos with this music and put some visuals to it. Like you could make some like really trippy, cool stuff with it. I mean, it's interesting because you're taking the sound that is out there, and then you're merging the different worlds, which is what's happening. Humans and nature are within each other. We're coexisting, maybe not the best way that we want to. So there's that coexistence that I feel in there, but at the same time, like you were saying, the hiker that had passed on, it feels like that tension between I'm going to the next plane. I'm still here, but I'm going. I'm coming back. I'm going. That kind of feeling. He's leaving, but you kind of feel like you're in his body for a bit. And I think that's interesting too with her dance, because dance is about energy, and you're putting it out there. And it's just an interesting. It's all connected. Yeah, I've never heard anything like this. So this is cool. I'm digging this. Hawaii. Going to Hawaii, I mean, that's going to be trippy with the whole volcano, lava, everything that's happened. Or did you get some crazy recordings from that?
So, funny story. It was probably my second day here. My wife and I, we got up early. And by the way, I love my wife. She's such an adventurous person. She is just with me at every step of the way on this journey. We get up, and we're ready to hike, and we get out there, and we went to a ranger talk because we love the ranger talks in the national park. They're always one of our favorite things. And, the ranger was talking about the volcano and this and that. And I knew Kilauea, for listeners who don't know, it just had that eruption last year, the major eruption that really decimated a big swath of land on the southeast part of the island. And so I knew that it had happened and that it was kind of dormant right now. But I went up to the ranger and I asked him, so, you mentioned in your talk there are these jet engine hissing sounds from the volcano. Where can I hear those? And he goes, oh, the volcano's quiet. It's not making any sound. And so me as a composer who came here to record sound, I just went, oh, boy, this is going to be quite a challenge. So I had to get a little creative, actually. So that first day, I thought, well, how could I make the steam sounds of the volcano? And so what I did, actually, was I recorded my shuffling feet across the gravel. And I sort of processed that sound later in my computer to make it sound like this sort of steam sound. So it's almost like this imagined volcano sound that came from me, the human, which is kind of just a funny way to do it. So I've been having to get creative in some ways to get some sounds, but so there's no real lava to record here. Again, it's pretty dormant, but I've had birds and plants and lava rocks, kind of hitting those together for some like drums and percussion sounds. It's been really fascinating going through the park and just kind of getting creative and using whatever sounds are there.
See, that's what I love about this kind of thing is like, it's never what you think, it's never going to be, and what you think is going to be there and it's there, it's still going to be different, but it's interesting because you talk about recording plants. And so obviously one of the first things we'll think is, okay, plants in the wind, but are there plant sounds with like a flower opening or something like that too that you can record?
Yeah, so I did get this really interesting plant. I'm not sure the name of it, but it was out on this petroglyphs trail. We were walking in this hot desert, black lava area, and all of a sudden I kind of brushed my foot up against this plant and it went, and I just stopped it because I thought there was an animal. And so I'm looking around going, what's out there? And so then I look down and there's this plant, and it has these little gourds on it. And so I just immediately got out my recording device and just kind of started shaking the plant a little bit and getting some of those gourd sounds from the plant. But funny enough, I just learned from a ranger today, actually, that's actually an invasive species. So they kind of gave me a little eye roll, like, yeah, you came to Hawaii to get, the sound of an invasive species. But nonetheless, it is in the park here, and, it is a part of the ecosystem, whether, we like it or not. So I decided to record it, and so I have that plant sound. And then in terms of other plant sounds, it's really difficult to get sensitive sounds like the unfurling of flowers, for example. I'm sure there's some amazing sound engineer who could do it, but I have no idea how to do it. But I have been able to get some other really fascinating sounds. So I bought a hydrophone for this trip, which I've never used before. It's a microphone you could submerge into water.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I tested it out back home. I tested it out in a glass of water in my bathtub. I was making bubbles and just to kind of get the sounds right and see how it worked. And so I've been kind of going all around the island. I haven't been limited to just the national park. I've been, spending just as much time in the park as I have snorkeling, to be honest. And so I've been dipping this hydrophone in the water, and I've been getting fascinating, wave sounds and bubble sounds. And I even got the sound of this little hermit crab carrying a rock across the seafloor, which was an incredible sound. So yeah, it's been wonderful traveling the island and getting, not just sounds in the park, just sounds everywhere from sort of every natural place I can find.
I love that because there are sounds under there, but there's also, okay, wait, have you watched The Day of the Triffids? The old movie?
No.
Oh, you must. Okay, so the Triffids come after people, right? And the only reason, and so people go blind, and so you've these big triffid plants coming after you, and how you know they're coming after you is you hear the click, click, click of the plants. They click. So I'm sorry, the first thing that went through my head when I heard that you recorded plant sounds was the triffids. You've got to watch The Day of the Triffids. I'm serious, okay? And then people, I think the first time I watched it, I was kind of freaked out. And then now it's really funny. And people are like climbing up, phone poles and they can't see. And the triffids are, I don't know. But anyway, it's funny. But plants do make sounds. It'd be interesting to go. We were just in Louisiana in a place called Vernon Parish. It's a wildflower capital of Louisiana. And so we went into Kisatchie Forest and our timing was just off, which is kind of a bummer. So we just have to go back. They have the plants, the carnivorous plants, and I think it would be really cool to record them, like snapping after things, And I was wondering that when going underwater, how coral and urchins, how they snap at things, like not coral, but there's like those little I totally forgot what they're called, urchins and things that just kind of close in on things. If you can hear that. That would be neat.
And that's yes. And to the plant thing, it sounds like you're already carving out my next residency. So be sure to tell them I'm coming. Give me a spot to stay because that sounds amazing. And about the coral, yes, there are all sorts of sounds coming from the coral, and that's what my hydrophone has been picking up, and I can't quite figure out which it is. It's either the sounds of fish eating the coral. There's this kind of little scraping sound I'm getting with my microphone, or it's the sound of snapping shrimp. I guess
Cool.
they sit on the seafloor and they kind of make these snapping sounds that travel across the entire water. They're really loud because there's so many of them doing it at the same time. So I'm trying to figure out which it is. But I've been getting those sounds from either the coral being eaten or the snapping shrimp sounds. So there's a world of sound underneath the ocean that is just so unexplored, I think. And actually, just the other day, to give you an idea of how complex the sounds in the ocean are, my wife pulled up an article that said that, the birds in the morning, for example, they do this thing called a dawn chorus where, the birds sing every morning. That's the loudest time you're going to hear birds singing in the forest. Well, I guess there's actually a dawn chorus for coral fish. There's this point in the morning where they actually make noises and sing more, just like the birds do. So I was just blown away to learn that we know so little about what sounds are underneath the ocean. It's just phenomenal.
Well, I think it's important because we forget about it. I hate to say the word humanizes, but it connects us with what we don't know. It's that observancy I was talking about, but it's like, I don't know, it's like observant hearing, however to say that. It's, because if we don't see it, we don't understand why to protect it. It's that we have, as humans, seem to need that extra bit of connection. But it's interesting with, like, talking about the shrimp and everything. Again, Louisiana, we just came out there. We're walking in this public park, also in Vernon Parish. They're interesting out there. With the lady, and we're like, what are these mud things? It looks like someone left like miniature chocolate bundt cakes on the trail, like little, and I mean that articulate with the little, how bundt cake is with, you know where to cut the cake, with all the little ridges. And it apparently is these mud bugs that they have there, and they dig out the soil and they come up, and I know they eat them out there too, but they eat everything out there. And so we're looking at them, and it's like, it was, because it's not the same as anthills that we'd see in Kenya. Those anthills and in South Africa, those anthills are massive. They're like, these are an entire colony. Like, if you could record the ants, that would be like trippy. But you got to get the little mud bugs, and like what you're saying, the shrimp, because they're almost like ants of the water, because they're bustling. They're like bees. They do things. They're bustling. They're social, and they're workers with what they do. So that's got to be so cool to hear them all and get in there, and now find this whole new life force, right? So do you ever see taking this and putting it with visuals and kind of connecting that?
Yes, and I have a little bit. I've dabbled in some videos. I made my first one was I did a road trip down Route 66 3 years ago, and I recorded across 10 different locations me playing the trumpet, and I played the song "Get Your Kicks on Route 66," that classic Bobby Toop song. And so I kind of cut between the locations as the video was going on. So I put some visuals to my music. And I'm getting into doing little time-lapse videos when I'm here in Hawaii. It's nothing crazy. I'm just using my iPhone. But I think I'm going to try and pair, like, the time-lapse videos with some of my sounds, because, my sounds kind of have this distorted psychedelic quality, and I think a time-lapse video sort of shares that. So I might do some experiments there, but I'm very amateur in the area of videos. I am just getting sort of into that area. I feel like mastered the audio domain, so I think I'm just kind of taking a baby step out there.
But I think that's what's so cool about these residencies. I know with the National Parks Arts Foundation, people go out there and things change. They have this idea and then it changes, and then it also gives this opportunity to expand your toolkit, basically, and to delve into other creative modes. With the artists that we've interviewed over the years, that's what seems to happen. It gives you that, hey, let me try something. You're already doing that. Going underwater, looking at the video side, and time lapse is so cool. To be able to work with that too, especially if you can get the sound with it as well. So, do you feel like a month is long enough, or would you want to spend longer?
Oh gosh, I would love to spend longer.
I know, right?
But I mean, it's hard for my wife and I because we're both teachers, and so we actually have to go back to teaching on August 27th, and our plane lands back in Michigan on August 26th at 6 a.m. So we only have a less than 24-hour period to recover. So we would love to stay longer, but our work beckons us back to education. So that's kind of our our time limit. But I know my wife and I, we love to travel these natural parks. National parks, I should say. We travel them pretty much every summer. We try and get out and see as many as we can. I think staying longer in one of these spaces would just be phenomenal. It's such a shame that even a month seems so short.
But it's so cool. It's such a great opportunity, and it's great that you can travel with your wife too. I think a lot of these residencies, it's like no, it's just you and
right.
And right. I think they're really cool. And you should check out their Dry Tortugas one, man. You could be on an island. You have your own island in the Keys, and you have to take someone
Absolutely.
with you because it's so remote. Talk about you could like record the turtles. That would be so cool,
oh my
wouldn't it?
That would be fantastic. That sounds like the next step for me.
Well, okay. So, with the recording thing? Do you have to now become a sound engineer to go like a different level? Like, if you went to Gettysburg, do you think you would record like woo-woo stuff because of what has happened there? Like, do you think you'd record, energy that has passed? I mean, you kind of already did that in the Smoky Mountains, but you know what I mean? Do you think you'd pick up things from the past? Like old energy still swirling through?
Right.
I wonder.
And even if I couldn't, it's always, as an artist, it's always such a very interpretive thing, especially with music. It's so interpretive and abstract that maybe I could write a piece of music that conveys that sort of energy. That's the beauty of being an artist, is that you can sort of do these, your own sort of interpretations and your own perspectives and stories of what's going on there.
Yeah. Now, how did you go from playing the trumpet to now I'm going to start recording sound in parks?
That was quite a long journey, because when I picked up the trumpet, I was in 5th grade, and my school district had a very, very strong music program, and I actually wasn't sure what I wanted to play, trumpet or clarinet, and so I ended up just going, trumpet. And so from picking up that instrument to now has been quite a journey. I think a key part of that has been, like I said, my public schools had phenomenal music programs, and that sort of was the initial push for me that really nurtured my musicianship. And in particular, Brian Nutting and Scott Crecilius were 2 band directors I had that were extremely influential on me. And so that was the initial push for me to study music in college. And once I was in college, I went to Michigan State University. I kind of took every opportunity I could there to study every kind of music I could. I was a very broad person. I didn't like to specialize, so I did conducting and music history and improvisation, and I even did a vocal jazz ensemble, which I was not a singer, but kudos to Sonny Wilkinson, wherever you are, for letting me in your jazz program, because I was not ready for that. But that sort of
good. That's
the
good.
world. Yeah, and then from there, after college, it was sort of a slow burn. I was a teacher. And I still am. I was teaching middle school band, and I was writing music for my students. And that kind of turned into one piece after the other, and then I kept on doing more of these sound recordings, which I've been doing since probably college. I was fiddling around with these recording devices, but it was just a slow burn of realizing, I think I've always been a composer. I just didn't really know it. And so, I played trumpet, I did all these other things, but as a composer, I didn't know if I was yet. But eventually I sort of figured this out, and that's when I took the next step into, doing residencies and doing bigger things than I'm doing now.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. You've inspired me, Tomorrow morning, first thing, we're going out to Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve here in southern Colorado, and which we haven't done yet. And now I'm going to take my recorder. I don't have the fancy one that you have, but I'm going to go record the sand dunes now and see what happens. My whole thing
Right.
lately is record cicadas because they're all making the sounds. It's summer and that's what you hear out here. Um,
Yes.
but now I'm thinking sand dunes might be really interesting.
Right, and that's the fun thing about this. As soon as like this sound world opens up around you, it becomes just this adventure and this curiosity game of finding what's the next interesting sound I could find that I didn't pay attention to. And that, like you said, it could be a cicada, it could be a sand dune, and it could be something outside your window. It could be a bird that you've never really paid attention to. So it becomes this amazing adventure, and it's phenomenal.
Well, where we are right now, we have skunks out our window. I don't want to go mess with them. I'm serious. They
Probably
do.
avoid those. Yep.
Well, you never know in Colorado. But anyway, I was just going to say, so I thank you so much for joining us. I know you've got an event coming up tonight, and I wish you all the best with that. Break a leg on that.
Thank you.
Your residency is almost over. I'm really sorry for you on that, but you had a good time. So, I really hope that you go and do more of these, and so we can, hear what else you get out there because it's interesting. My whole mind is kind of blown. Now I'm thinking like, I want to go and like record fungus now. For some reason, I think like fungus has got to be interesting, and I wonder, because it's neat. They pop up fast. So if like you could record a fungus popping up right now. I'm going to trip out all night. Thanks. Thanks for that.
You're absolutely welcome.
Around. I'm going to be like one of those people like with a, what do you call them? They go out looking for gold or whatever with their little machine that goes out there. I'm going to be one of those people, but like recording every little sound I can get and seeing what I can do. It's interesting. I think it's neat because it's just another sense of awareness of something we don't know. Do you think last question, do you think you can record something like, there's where we're at too. We're going to go to Florissant National Monument, Florissant, the fossil beds. And they have like this crazy thing of recorded like fossilized plants and insects. So do you think you can go up to these fossils and record them and see if anything happens? Like that deep in history.
Well, probably not. Those sound pretty dead.
Like with the lava, right? So it's like the lava's going to be dead. It's like, no, you're not going to get
it. Right, exactly. But you never know with like a contact microphone. You might just get like something within the earth, like a little, shaking or earthquake or something like that. I'd actually try when I'm here. No such luck. But and again, even if you don't get sounds from the fossil beds, it's just interesting to stare at them and think, well, what sounds would convey this to a listener? If I only had to play them a sound, what would sort of paint this picture for them? And that's the fun for me as an artist, to paint these, aural pictures, A-U-R-A-L, aural. For the listener. So that
they can feel that sound. Yeah, you're in the sound. You can feel it's bringing all the senses together. That's really interesting. But if you did go and film like a fossil of a cricket and all of a sudden you got a cricket sound, wouldn't you just absolutely jump and freak out? If that happens.
Oh, absolutely. And that would be part of the sound, I'm sure. That would become the piece that, it's these fossils over here, but there's these crickets, the life around these dead fossils, and that would become its own piece right there,
I know. You won't go there that the cricket would actually like come out of the fossil. I know you're just not going there with me, are you? Come on,
I'm just scared. That sounds stuff a nightmare. So I don't want to go there.
I'm like, it's a sci-fi world, right? And now you've got to watch the Day of the Triffids. You have to do that, but do it once you're settled and back in the school world. But listen, we're gonna play your song Aoife and Aoife EDM. So this is about your dog, and this is dog sounds, but it's like it feels like you feel like you can hear the dog moving. Am I right in that? It's
right.
Like you feel,
Yeah. Well, this is actually one of my projects that I am the most proud of. It's so funny. I spend so much time and effort into these massive projects sometimes about really weighty themes, and but sometimes I'll just say, my dog is this cute little bundle of joy that runs around my house all the time making sound. What if I just recorded her one day? And so I did with my little recording device. I caught her running and shaking and clacking across the floor and eating her food, and her food bowl kind of hitting the ground. And I took all those sounds and made them into the piece you're about to hear. And again, so there's no other instruments. It's just my dog sounds. That's her. That's all her running around my house. No added trumpets or violins or anything. And I called it IFA EDM. EDM standing for electronic dance music, because I thought it'd be funny to have my dog, making this, really wild, trancy sort of club music. So that's how IFA EDM came about, and it's, again, one of the projects I'm actually most proud of. It turned out really well. And for musicians out there, this track is fascinating to me because I did a lot of work in phrases of 5 beats. So the phrase of the music is actually in a 5-measure phrase, and then the last measure, the 5th measure, is in a 5/4 time signature. So there's actually an added beat in that measure. So it's just a fun little detail I threw in there just to add some complexity to the sound. So again, it's one of my favorite little projects. IFA EDM.
Yay! Awesome. We're going to play it, everyone, again. You can go to AndyJarema.com. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Because I like to turn everything around,
Yeah, Jarema, kind of like dream.
Harima. Yeah, you know what? I'm in the Southwest all the time, so this is what happens. So JAREMA.com, AndyJarema.com. Also for the National Parks Arts Foundation, everyone keep up with them at nationalparksartsfoundation.org. If you're an artist of any genre, really check it out. Keep up with their newsletter, their social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because they come up with opportunities all the time. It has to do with grants. They're like, hey, we got this grant, and we need to get an artist like now. And you need to be part of that social media newsletter system so you get that opportunity, and then you can't sit on it. You need to get on it and move on it. And if you don't get accepted the first time, do it again and do it again, because it goes through a panel of judges, and, then it just may not work out that time. And it doesn't matter, because you're just going to try again and eventually you'll get there. So don't quit. Keep doing it, because as Andy will say, it's worth it. And he got to go to Hawaii and stay in that awesome Art B&B, as we call it, and it has its own recording studio in there, right? Did you play in the recording studio? Did you play your trumpet in there?
Funny enough, I've been hiking so much, I haven't even set foot in that thing. I've looked into it, and I thought, man, it'd be nice to use that, but then I just want to go out and hike.
Dude, you've got to at least do something in there. You've got to, because you're like, dude, I should have done that. To run in there after a gig tonight, go in there and just, play something, just do something in there, because they created that. I think that's so cool that they did that too. That
it's amazing,
Right,
and I feel so bad for Tanya, whose husband created this. It's a phenomenal space, and I haven't even used it. Sorry, Tanya. So I'm going to give it a night. I know, and they're putting
is a dance floor in yet? I know they were building a dance floor for dancers, and I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what they're doing. So it's everyone, again, Hawaii, your own house, and recording studio, and views of the ocean, and seriously, how cool is that? So everyone, thanks for joining us. Again, it's AndyJarema.com. I'm just making sure I said his last name correctly. And also nationalparksartsfoundation.org. And go to nps.gov/HAVO for Hawaii-Volcanoes-National-Park. All information is also up on our site, nationalparktraveling.com. But here it is. We're going to play IFA EDM. You've got me on the names today, Andy, for sure. Here it is.
I sure have.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a real pleasure. And enjoy the last bit of time you have in Hawaii.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Thanks for having me on.
You take care.